Thanks for tuning in to the Charles Novell School of Music podcast, The Best Day Yet. Here you'll find tips, insight, and information to help your music and your ministry succeed. Whether you're a singer, a musician, or a songwriter, we want to help you where you are, but we also want to help you get to where you want to go. We believe that our talents are God's gift to us, but what we do with those are our gift back to God. Yesterday's information is important, but what we can learn today will make this the best day yet. Hey, Rob Novell here. Welcome back to another episode of the Charles Novell School of Music podcast, The Best Day Yet. We are super excited about today's podcast, about today's events, and today in general. Today is Tuesday, September 24th, 2024. And today, someone very near and dear to the Charles Novell School of Music family and to the Novell family. This is their day. Jeff Stice gets inducted today into the SGMA, the Southern Gospel Music Association Hall of Fame, which is taking place during the National Quartet Convention 24 in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. Jeff gets honored and the due honor. He gets the due justice and honor. Jeff had an amazing career in gospel music, and that is being acknowledged and recognized today with his induction into the Hall of Fame. Jeff Stice taught for 40 years for my dad and for me at the Charles Novell School of Music. My dad hired him in 1982, a young pianist out of Kentucky. He was playing with a group called London, Paris, and the Monitors at that time. I met Jeff through the school that year as a 12-year-old piano student walking into a private lesson room to take piano lessons with Jeff Stice. Man, Jeff quickly became part of the Charles Novell School of Music family and part of the Novell family. Jeff was absolutely the closest thing I ever had to a big brother. He's spoken to me personally, musically, and spiritually in my life. So knowing this was coming, back in July during CNS24, we honored Jeff all week. My piano staff, we each played a different arrangement of Jeff's during one of the nightly concerts during the week. Then on Friday, at the end of the week, we each day at 1 o'clock, we do a thing called Best Day Yet Live, where we interview a guest in front of our student body during the school. And on Friday, I brought that entire piano staff in so we could talk about Jeff's influence on our lives and our music and our ministries. So we had in the room that day, my piano staff, James Rainey, Becky Carver, Roy Webb, Dana Simpson, myself. And we also had a special guest. We had Scott Godsey in with us on that Friday. And Scott worked closely with Jeff through artist management and helping him with his music. So Scott was part of this panel that day. So I want us to go into this session that was recorded back in July and hear how we were able to honor Jeff and remember Jeff on this special day. Congratulations, Jeff. We sure do love you and miss you. Can we do this? Can we make all of our piano staff welcome to our podcast today? So I just gave you and them at the same time why we're all sitting here. Share just briefly your connection with Jeff.
I would say that the first time I met Jeff, he was playing with the Nealons, I believe. Right. And so we always used to go hear the Nealons at a country church not too far from where I grew up in Indiana. And of course, Jeff is wonderful to everybody, but being a 4 or 5 year old kid, he really poured into me and paid attention and let me, wrap up a cable or the lack thereof, but he let me touch the cable and made some spaghetti. But in more recent years, of course, the Perfect Heart years, even when you were there, being around Jeff as well there. But I would say it was around when the Triumphant thing kind of started. I started doing more stuff in the business, and then by the time he was doing his solo career. We did cruises together. He would come to the studio often. I had a studio at that time, and it was just, we just always had a great time. But what I remember the most was during COVID, and he came and did quite a few live streams. And at that time, of course, most of the artists that were full-time, where they depend on that income, they really needed to have a place to generate some revenue. And, he just always went out of his way to try to give me something that I could use in my career. And maybe the most memorable thing, since we are talking about piano and voicing, we were in the studio one day, and I remember him. Gordon Mote's one of my favorites as far as voicing two chords and making sure the acoustic guitar and everything, everybody's on the same page, especially on the right hand and the left hand. But in particular, the right hand voicing. And Jeff was showing me so many different things that I had never thought about, because I don't really play piano. And I do produce some still, not much, but that was probably the most impactful thing that he could have ever done, was showing me the different voicing, because it made me think about vocals, different string arrangements, and he just meant the world to me personally. I loved him.
Greatly missed. So knowing you were going to be with us today, it just was fitting to ask you to be sitting here with us. Roy, we all shared a little bit this week as to the connection to the song. But let's take that a little further now that we have a little more time. You explained that people need the Lord, but more and a little deeper dive into Jeff's influence on you and maybe your plan.
Jeff was, in my opinion, he was still, he was kind of like a kid, really, when it came to this stuff. He really was. He was always like, oh man, what's going on? Like kind of like your puppy when you go home and he's always happy to see you. That was like Jeff was always happy to see you. So I don't know, man. We had this connection with music. We had this connection with basketball, both being Kentucky basketball fans. And one time at convention, my cousin's husband actually played for Kentucky back in the 70s. And so they had a home in Louisville, and we stayed there when convention was in Louisville. We stayed at their house that week. And I told Jeff about it. And it's a good thing there was a stalking law in Kentucky at the time, because he just lost his mind. He was like, Jimmy Dan Connor? You're staying with Jimmy Dan Connor? And he was like, he went to Anderson County High School. He averaged 12 points. Like, he knew all of his stats. So on the way back to their house one night, we stopped and I bought a basketball, and I had Jimmy Dan sign it to him. And I brought it to him the next day. And you would have thought I just gave him $10 million in cash. Like, he lost his mind.
Wow.
Right? But really, what was funny about Jeff is he always made you feel better than what you really were.
Yeah.
Which then made you kind of go, well, if Jeff thinks I'm this good, I better step up, because I don't think I'm that good. So I better step up and play more. And so he always wanted, hey, show me what you did here. Show me what chord that was. Show me. And then I'd show him, and then I was like, okay, he already knew. Right. But he was kind of building confidence. So I don't know. I often wondered like who poured into him.
Right.
Because if you're pouring into somebody's got to pour back into you, right? Yeah. And so I always wondered, I wonder who poured into Jeff. But I'm thankful that I could reach out to him anytime and talk about basketball, talk about piano, who was doing what. Sometimes he would call me and just say, man, who are you listening to now? Like, who are you listening to? I'm in a rut. Who are you listening to? And I would tell him, well, I'm listening to Bruce Hornsby right now. This record, I'm going to go buy it, man. I've got to do something. And it's funny because people don't think that people on that level get into ruts. We get into ruts.
Sure.
We get into ruts, and we're like, why am I playing the same thing every time in every song? Like, what is wrong with me? But he would just always talk about, and then I would call him, hey man, I'm having issues with this. I hate the key of A flat. Why is it a key?
Right.
Why is this the thing? And he would just tell me, how he worked on finger exercises, different things like that. So he never one time, I think to sum it all up, he never one time said, you know what, man, I don't have time to talk right now. I don't have time to help you. He never did that, not one time. There was never, I'll call you back. It was always right. He was always available, and that's priceless.
Dana, same question. A little deeper dive into the influence Jeff had on your music and your life.
I've always been insecure with everything. And B, I'll call him B, my husband's name is Bobby, but B, he said one day, he said, "You're going to start playing for Commonwealth." And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Well, you've always played for mixed groups." And I said, "Yeah, and? But you've never played for a quartet." "Yeah, and? You need to go have some sessions with Jeff." And I said, "Well, he wouldn't want to fool with me." And he said, "Yes, he would." B has known, I keep talking about him like he's in the present. B knew Jeff when he was a kid, and has known him for a very long time. And he said, "Yeah, he would." And I said, "Well, call him." I said, "Where does he even live?" He said, "Oh, he lives over there, about 20 minutes from here." And I said, "Oh." The first time he came to our home, he wanted to come to our home because if y'all know him, Rhythm and Blue or Golden Retrievers, and they would just love all over you when you walked into his house, and they did that. And he was like, we could have an easier time me coming there. I said, "Sure." And when he sat down and he heard me play for the first time, he qualified me as a player because of his attitude toward me was not like this. His attitude toward me was like this. And his love for the craft that we all share, it outweighs everything. And his love for people was genuine. And his love for me was genuine. And he made me feel like I was a part of his family. And the short amount of time that God allowed me the opportunity to get to be with him in session, qualified me. And I think he was a genuine, real person that sometimes we as fan-based people, because I'm a fan, I'm a fan of every one of these people up here, because of what they're doing, what God's path is for their life, their commitment to their craft, their commitment to what God has given them to do for this life. And I can glean from that. So, he was that way, and I appreciate the fact that he was at Fort Mountain. He was transparent. Fort Mountain, if you don't know, it was a place where I went the first time that I was called on by Rob. I was so thankful for that call to come and be a part of the staff. We had to go to Fort Mountain that year, and I was thankful that we were there. It was a small campus, and so we got to see each other a lot more in passing than we do here. And I like that part about that. It was a close-knit community of moving around, and that's where I met Scott for the first time. And so I walked up to him and I said, "When is the singing news coming? I need to have it." Because B and I are huge Southern gospel music fans. That's what our group plays. So Jeff was a real person behind the professional stage platform that he had. He had problems just like we do. He's gone through loss just like we have. He's gone through highs and lows. And in the sharing of that, it helped me to see, okay, he is where I've been and where I'm at. And he's willing to sit and spend time with me. And that helped me to be able to see that in God's eyes, I'm just as important to God with the path he's got for me to lay out for my life as with Roy and with Beck and with James and with Scott and with Rob. And he made me see that I was just as important, that I did not have to sit there and go, I'm not as good as. Was I nervous when I played last night? Shoot, yeah. Wouldn't you be nervous playing in front of these people? But when you sit down and if you're playing and the motive of your playing is to give to him what he gave to you, all will be well.
That's right.
You may make a note or two that doesn't necessarily exactly where you wanted to go, and it may sound off. That's okay. We're human. We are not perfect. We're not Jesus. But as long as what we do to him is unto him and him alone, then he will bless what we're trying to do with our life. So I love Jeff because of the person that he was, almost more than the musician that he was, because he said it in the beginning. I've never advertised for students. I've said, Lord, bring me who you want me to have a relationship with. And I'm telling you, the relationships that I've developed with the people that I've been able to be in session with, and the people that have sessioned with me, I will forever be grateful for the opportunity, because being with, I can say this person, because I'm getting to session with him some, I'm a better person because I've gotten to be with this person, because of the life they lead, because I know where the heart's at, and that's what Jeff did for me. I'm a better person because I was able to see Jesus in him.
That's good, Dana.
Can I say one thing?
Yeah.
I knew about you before I ever met you because Jeff told me about you.
Right.
He complimented you.
kidding.
No, I promise.
Yeah.
I wouldn't lie.
He had talked about you before that challenge.
You know what he
so-
said?
I did not know that.
Roy, I am teaching this lady named Dana Simpson how to play. She plays like a dude, man. That's exactly what he said. He goes, she's killing it. She plays like a dude. So I knew you were good.
Dana, the special thing for me last night when you played Mansion over the Hilltop, I shared this story this week. I don't know, 10, 11 years ago, we were in Rome, Georgia, Paul Belcher City Auditorium, and I was there playing bass with Triumphant that night, and Jeff was playing. And if you follow me on Facebook, you know every Sunday morning I play a hymn. Well, it was that night in Rome, Georgia, Saturday night, and Jeff went to the piano, and he said, I went to my mom's the other day. She wanted to hear me play, but she didn't want to hear all the tracks and stuff. She's like, Jeff, just sit down and play me a hymn. And he played that arrangement of Mansion over the Hilltop that night, and that's what God used to challenge me. I've not missed a Sunday since that night. The reason, anybody seen me post a hymn on Sunday? It's because of that song that Dana played last night on a stage with Triumphant in Rome, Georgia on a Saturday night. So
I want to say
super
this
cool.
one thing with regard to what you just said. The first day he walked into the lake house, we have a lake house. I'm thankful for it. It's small because we don't have any babies at home anymore. And so it's easier to clean. And I have a loft, so I get to teach in this loft. And I have glass windows that I look out, and there's the lake. And so I feel very fortunate to live there. It's very quiet, and I can turn my music up as loud as I want to. And so he walks in, and he looks up, and that's where the ceiling gets bigger the farther back you go in the house, which is not very far. And B was sitting there in the chair, and of course they did their howdies back and forth, and he comes upstairs and he sits down in my chair, like I told you last night. And he sits down, and he's sitting there, well, what are you going to play for me today? And here I'm sitting here going, every part of my body was going like this, because I had, watched him just like y'all have. Y'all watched these people, and I revere these people because of what they do. But when I get to know them and who they are and what they're about, then it really gets extra for me. And so he's sitting there, and so I sat there and I played that version of Were You There When They Crucified My Lord? I wrote that 20 years ago or so, when I was much younger. And I started playing that, and he's sitting there, and he's kind of, how he did, he's kind of sitting here kind of watching and looking. And I got done, and I just kind of looked over at him, and when I looked over at him, he how he'd do that sometimes. and he threw his keys up on my computer stand where I do Facebook. He sat back, and he crossed his legs. I just don't know how to say this, but you play just like a man.
See?
That's exactly what he said to me. Of course, that broke all. He knew how to break the ice with people too, because he knew saying that to me, I'd either do one or two things. I'd get mad, I'd cry, or I'd laugh my tail off, and that's exactly what I did. I laughed myself silly, and B was sitting downstairs going, you know, he's a good B. He's got this big belly laugh, and so yeah, that was the funniest story I have of being able to be around him, because that's what he did. I just don't know how to tell you this, but you played like a man. And it was just hilarious to me. But I cherish that. And it's something that, even though he's gone from us now, I can look at that and I can pull that memory back up into my heart, and I can smile. I can get past the fact of, God, why did you do this? Why did you take him away from us so early? And who am I to question God, first of all? But sometimes I just get downright mad.
Yeah.
Just get downright mad. But that's one thing that I can look back on and say, yeah, this happened in my house with my husband and my piano teacher, that my husband had me. It was through my husband. And I'm thankful for that too, because B is the light of my life, the love of my life. And if it were not for him, I would not be sitting here today.
Right. Becky, same question. His influence a little deeper on your life and your music.
So I went to school and studied classical music, and had the opportunity when I was in college to play for a local gospel group in our area. Well, you know, classical and gospel are totally different, and so anyway, I had Perfect Heart had come to our church, little small country church in Mississippi, and they had given a concert. Of course, I had been to some gospel concerts, but anyway, I think it was like the second or third concert that Perfect Heart had ever done. And so anyway, I saw this guy playing the piano. I was like, wow, that's so cool. And, you know, he, of course, it was totally different from classical. You know, he's tapping his foot and having a good time. And I had a pastor's wife friend of mine, and she and I would travel and go see Perfect Heart. Well, when Rob joined, I think he had mentioned to me about coming to the school, and so came to the school, and of course I wanted to study with Jeff. And first lesson, walk in there, and he goes, "Okay, what do you want to learn?" And I'm like, "I don't know. You're the teacher." And so anyway, but he taught me a lot of licks. He taught me when to play, when not to play. He taught me, you know, to be laid back. He taught me how to tap my foot, because we didn't do that in classical. You know, we were not taught to tap our feet. You know, if you tap your foot, it's inside your shoe. It's not, you know, publicly. So, you know, he taught me how to be more laid back. And, you know, I just am so thankful for his influence. You know, I'm not sure why I'm sitting up here on this platform with these wonderful musicians, but I am thankful to be here. And, you know, you were talking about ministry. You know, we all up here have our different ministries. You know, I'm not going to be James Rainey. I'm not going to be Dana Simpson. I'm not going to be Roy Webb. But I have my place that I fit.
That's right.
You know, Steve and I, we do evangelistic work. We do a lot of revivals, and we go in and provide praise and worship, and then we sing special music for revivals. You know, that's where the Lord has called us to be. And I think it's important that, you know, no matter what level you're on, use the gifts and the talents that the Lord has given you. I also teach lessons. I've been teaching for 32 years privately. Yes, I did. Thank you. I appreciate that. But, you know, one thing that I have tried to tell my students, because I, in college, was taught perform. It's all about your performance. But one thing that I've tried to teach my students, and I've told some of my students here, you practice and you practice and you practice. You practice all the technical things. You get those technical things where, it's just something that comes naturally. But then when you get up to perform, it's not about you anymore. Amen. It's about the Holy Spirit using you. And so, letting the Holy Spirit take over. Because once you learn how to breathe, or once you learn how to do a lick on the piano, you don't get up and worry about it. When I got up to play Jeff's arrangement the other night, it was crazy because I got done teaching at 6, went over to the dorm, changed clothes, came back, and Rob was introducing Jeff, and I thought, oh my goodness. And, I didn't really have time to think, but I had time to just say a quick prayer. Lord, it's not about me. It's about you.
That's right. Hey, Rob Novell here with the Charles Novell School of Music. I wanted to take a second to tell you about our next national session, CNS25, that'll be taking place June 22nd through the 28th at Bethel University in McKenzie, Tennessee. What could God do with your life, your music, and your ministry if you simply gave Him 1 week of your time? At CNS, you can study voice, piano, guitar, songwriting, bass guitar, drums, sound and technology, social media, group training, and more. For more information, reach out to us at www.cnsmusic.com. James, same question. Influence on you and your music.
Yeah, Rob, you and I have never talked about this, and we may have or may not have. Let me show you, folks, how things come a big full circle. When I was growing up and learning to play, I took lessons from a lady named Bonnie Baker Taylor, who attended the Charles Novell School of Music. They taught her, she was here last year. They taught her piano licks and how to play and this sort of thing. And I think she even took from your dad, Rob.
She did.
Yeah. And so my first piano, you ready for this, Roy? Cash D. Ambergy. South Lebanon, Ohio, where you save cash with cash. Yes. So that was my first piano. And see, now we're all tied together. Well, Frisch's did too, but we're all tied together in this thing called music. Well, let's advance forward a little bit. I joined the Singing Americans as a kid. Didn't know much, Scott. And I joined them, and man, I was just the hot shot little piano player. I was just going to go out there and show the world what I had. Well, I'd heard about this guy, Jeff Stice. Heard about him. Never seen him, never met him or nothing. We were in Fort Worth, Texas. And out there in Fort Worth, Texas, they had this big grand, like this thing here, big grand piano. And so they opened this case up back there, and they wheeled, it's going to wheel it out. Well, we got there early, so we got what's called the first setup. We get to put our stuff where we want it, and everyone has to work around us. Not when Jeff Stice is on the program. He looked up there and saw that I had my stuff sitting where he wanted his piano. Well, I wasn't in there. I was out setting up the product table or something, and he just unplugged my stuff and moved it. Put the grand piano right in there, And so I came back in to do something, and I looked and I said, wait, what's my stuff doing behind the piano? I took the grand piano and shoved it way forward. I moved my stuff back out, plugged it all back up. I come back in. He did it again. He unplugged everything, moved it all out of the way, moved his grand piano in there. Well, I'd gotten tired of it, Scott. I'd had enough. I looked back here and saw that case where that piano come out. I wheeled that sucker back in there, put the padlock on it, and shut it. Done. Jeff come out and looked at me, and he said, James, are we going to do this all night? And I said, well, I don't know. Are we, Jeff? I said, are we going to work together? Are we just going to, So we had to go get some bolt cutters, cut that lock off, move that piano back out. And let me tell you what happened. You guys need to hear all this. So I went to dinner that night. We stopped to eat. And it was Rex Neal and Singers and Singing American stuff. And I said, Jeff, can I buy your dinner? He goes, absolutely. He said, and I said, why'd we just do that? And he goes, I don't know. He said, I thought it was a game at first. We don't know. So we're looking at each other laughing. And so I bought his dinner that night and realized what a true gentleman he was.
Did he order one of everything on the menu?
Two. And trust me, the boy could eat. He could eat. So I bought his dinner that night. Now let's fast forward again. You know, life has a way of destroying people's lives. Life has a way of destroying you as an individual. And sometimes an industry that doesn't understand what you're going through can be a little harsh and a little judgmental. And there was a couple years, Scott, I was blackballed. I couldn't have got a job in this industry if I wanted it. They saw one thing when it was another, but yet they had a perception that I just shouldn't be here. So I had to start working in the restaurant business. Becky, I didn't have a job. We went on a Singing at Sea cruise. Brian and Yvonne Hudson put us on. They even paid for it. They put us on this cruise. And this guy named Jeff Stice was the first one to come and hug me. Now, I'm sorry, I'm going to get a little emotional here. He came and hugged me and he said, James, why aren't you playing? This is Jeff. And I said, because they don't want me. They don't love me. He said, that ain't right. He said, that ain't right. You are loved. He says, as a matter of fact, I've wondered where you've been. I'm over the parade of pianos. You be on my program. Get your suit on. I went out and played. So I was a nervous wreck. I was fat. My belly hung over my belt buckle. I mean, I'd just been out so long. And I played my first song. I was out of breath when I got done. And Jeff looked at me and he said, James, play another one. They don't do that on the parade of pianos. We're on a time limit. You know that. Oh, yes. And I can barely get them up. But listen to this. This gets really good. I played the second song. Jeff walked me to the front of 1,000 people, put his arm around me, and he said, this guy gets it. Those were his exact words. This guy gets it. Hadn't sold a CD in years. My wife had him in a Walmart bag in the back. Here's what Jeff said. Everybody go back there and find the woman with the Walmart bag and buy one of everything that boy's got. I sold more CDs at that moment than I had sold in so long. And here's what he said. If I'm on the program, you're on the program. We started working together. Everywhere Jeff was, if he was in charge of it, I was on it. He loved me back into this music. Now let's go a step further. Rob, before he passed away, had a talk with Jeff. And they said, Jeff, who should we bring to the school? Tell me I'm not on it. He said, who should I bring in the school? I need additional staff. And the first name that wonderful man said was James Rainey. And he passed on. Rob came to me brokenhearted. And the first thing he said was, would you come to the school and teach? I've got to feel the love of this school, the heart of this school. And hopefully I'm carrying on something that Jeff imparted into me. And you know what that is? Love on the people, and they'll love you back. That's what he taught me. Sorry, Rob, I didn't mean to get into all that.
Oh, you're good. I want to add something because Jeff was that way with a lot of people, right? But what he didn't share, because he was being modest, the Parade of Pianos is one of the most popular things on the Singing at Sea cruise, and Jeff was in charge of that. And James is now carrying on that mantle and organizes that entire program and does a fantastic job, and he would be so proud of you. Can we all give James a big hand? You know, before I give this back to you, Rob, maybe the most important thing I can think of right now about Jeff, it wasn't the music, wasn't anything of that nature to me. We were getting ready to go out on a tour to performing arts centers with a gospel artist that I'd booked like 45 shows with. We were going out west. When we start a big show like that, there's input lists, tech writers, stage plots, all kinds of things that go with that kind of show. And I would always go out for the first 2 or 3 shows, make sure that everything's good, and then I would go home because I have to work. Not that that's not work, but that's not my gift set. And one of my staff members you stock a bus when you go out on a big tour like that. So, here comes 3 grocery carts full of stuff, water, toilet paper, all the things. I'm the first one on the bus, and Jeff had just gotten there. He loaded his keyboard with that monster case that he hated, and I hated it too when I had to move it. And Jeff, to me, was a Hall of Famer before he got inducted this year, right? And just, I would put him on a pedestal. I would. And he would never act like that, but that's where I would put him, because that's who he was to me and to a lot of us. And I'll never forget, this is what we all need to remember this week, okay? I think I may have had 2 people there that went in and got groceries. And so I step off the bus and I start helping them load in groceries. Jeff grabbed the biggest case of water and helped us load everything in. That's not his job. But it needed to be done, and he didn't have anything else that he needed to do. But you'll never understand fully until you get out there on the road with people. The guy who's willing to pick up a case of water when it's not his job, that's the guy you want sitting beside you all the time.
That's good, Scott.
When we leave this podcast, those of you that are listening and those of you that are thankfully here with us today, appreciate you coming. Don't fail to go listen to his music. We're talking about him, but go listen and you will hear his heart.
I've said this all week. Sorry, this is for the podcast. Met Jeff Stice on this campus in 1982 when I walked in on a Monday as a 12-year-old piano student to his private studio. And we connected right away. By Friday of that week, Jeff came down on Friday morning, opened the door to his teaching studio, and a blizzard had come through the night before. We toilet papered the heck out of that room. I've got a picture of that still. And so he quickly became part of the Novell family and the school family. And 9 years later, he called and said, "Hey, Robbie, Arb's getting married. Could you come out? I need you to come. Could you come out for 3 weeks?" I said, "Sure, I'll be there." And a funny thing there, I don't know if I've told you this, when he was singing or playing for London Paris in the monitors, and London called my dad and said, "Charles, I got this kid playing piano for me. You need to hire him at the school." So Dad talked to him and said, "Jeff, could you send me a cassette tape of some intros and some endings and some different keys?" And Jeff said, "Sure, Charles. Yeah, I can do that for you." And what keys? Dad said, "All of them." So, 9 years later, "Jeff, can you fill in for Arb?" And I said, "Yeah, what songs?" Jeff said, "All of them." He said, "I've been waiting a decade to say that to a Novell." He remembered that. So, then I went out on the road with him. I did the math a while back. We played over 200 sessions together. I've been out with him with Triumphant, just so many different settings. Jeff quickly became that big brother that I never had. But so many things I could say. But here's the most influential thing. We're not sitting here without Jeff Stice, because 2020 happens. We're 17 days in, January 17th. I lost my dad. And I love this school. I've grown. This is my 55th one. We're 50th anniversary of this camp. We moved here 50 years ago this year. Love the school, but I began to second guess that I could move this school forward. And Jeff called and said, "Hey, what are you doing?" I said, "Nothing." And well, hang on. So that was January 17th. We rolled through that. We get 6 weeks later. And we got an email March 27th or so from the university. They canceled us. They canceled all summer activities because of COVID. And from January 17th to March 27th, I allowed the enemy to tell me I couldn't do this, because boy, was he telling me. And I was listening. And Dad, university, lost our founder, lost our place to hold it. And so I had me a pity party deluxe. And the next day my phone rang. It was Jeff. I answered. He said, "Hey, Robbie, what are you doing?" I'm like, "Nothing." Whoa, back up. Let's try this again. "Hey, Robbie, what are you doing?" "Nothing." "Okay, what's wrong?" I'm like, "Nothing." "Oh, come on. What's wrong, Robbie?" "Nothing." I'm down. And I said, "Look, we lost Dad. We lost Murray State University." And he said, "So?" I'm like, "Are you not hearing me? We can't have a school." And here's what he did. He said, "Look, I called you for something else, but get off your butt, find us a new location. We're moving the school forward." And he hung up on me. And we're not here today had it not been for that conversation, because that's what shook me, and that's what a big brother will do. There was tough love over the years. There was tough love. He meant something to all of us, but that level of influence, so much musically, unbelievable level of influence. And then from that phone call on, he's like, "We're gonna do what we got to do. We're gonna do what." He checked in on me literally every day. We get 17 days or 10 days out from the school, found Fort Mountain. We get, you know the story well. We get there 10 days out. We lose 33 students and 3 staff members in 36 hours. And in 10 days, Corey and I built an online school, sold the vision to 47 people, and the Charles Novell School of Music, the history books will show, never stopped. We kept going, and it was that phone call from Jeff that day, or I can't say that. It was that phone call from Jeff that was my phone in September of that year, prompted you to reach out to me. So much. Okay, so we are running out of time, so this is speed round. Funny stories. I will start. Me and Jeff stayed at each other with basketball, called Jeff up. Kentucky having a down year, Bearcats having a good year. I said, "Man, did you see the poll?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "How in the world is Kentucky ranked above the Bearcats?" He's like, "They're not, Robbie." I said, and of course he knew. He knew. I said, "No, they are, Jeff." He's like, "No, they're not, Robbie." I said, "Jeff, I'm looking at my phone wait a minute, my phone's upside down." He hung up on me, right? So, Scott, funny story.
Funny story, quick one. So we did a lot of things together, cruises, whatever. And about the second or third year in a row, we were doing the same cruise, and not the same itinerary. But Jeff and I would always end up at the same beach resort. Never planned it. In some of these ports, there's like a dozen options, good options. And by about the fourth or fifth year, we kind of made it a game if we were going to end up at the same place. And sure enough, almost every time we would end up at the same place, and we would just die laughing, because we could have talked about it at that point, but we like to not tell each other where we were going, just to see if we'd end up at the same place. And that was one of the funniest things that happened to us. Not funny to you, funny to me.
I think mine is I was out in Fresno doing that when they did that Western Quartet convention out there, and Triumphant was out there. I was out there as a soloist, and Jeff wanted to work out with me one day, and I said, "Jeff, it's pretty intense, man." And he was like, "Oh, I can do it, man. Me and Eric want to do it." And I said, "Okay." So what we did is we would run for a minute, full sprint. Then when we'd stop and do a minute of push-ups, get back up, full sprint, minute of jumping jacks, jump back up, full sprint. And after about 7 minutes, he looked at Eric and he said, "He is purposely trying to kill me out here." And I wasn't, but yeah, he made it about another 3 minutes, and then that was it. He walked back to the bus.
How long was the workout?
30 minutes, but he lasted probably about 9 or 10.
That's legit. You were with
6. Well, it was coming up
Ernie
6.
House
Yeah,
routine?
it was an Ernie House routine that we did. It was awful. It was horrible. I was trying to hurt him, but not that bad.
So all I got is, you play like a man.
There you go. That works. That works.
I really don't have a funny story other than when he came to our church. It was 2019, and our pastor at the time, he laughed like a woman, and it was like really high. Well, he would get tickled at Jeff during the service, and Jeff would turn to him, "I love you, man." And it was just funny. It wouldn't be funny to y'all. Y'all would have to see the video. We showed it to the staff at the staff retreat, but it was so hilarious.
Real quick, Scott, you'll back this up right here. I always wanted to do a cruise with you, and I was playing for Jonathan Wilburn and Wilburn at the time, and we went out on a cruise with you, and I got to bring my wife. Boy, they got us a room down on the first floor right by the rudders and the engine and all that kind of stuff. Thank you for that room, I appreciate it. Way down there. Anyways, so we get on there, and Jeff was on there, of course. And so everybody's setting up. Nealons were setting up. Everybody's setting up. And I noticed Jeff just walking around. And I'm just walking around. And we're all just looking. And it came time for sound check. And Nealons were singing. And this one was singing and, getting their warm-ups and stuff. And I'm like, Jeff, did you bring a piano? He goes, no, man. Did you? I said, no. Did Scott bring one? There wasn't a piano on that ship. There wasn't a piano nowhere. And at first, Jeff got aggravated, and he goes, well, free vacation. You were there.
I was there.
You were there.
All right, so one more, because thank you. I said lightning round, and you guys made that happen. Perfect Heart, we were in New Orleans for 2 days, and so I'm up in the cleanup room, and he come up and busted in the room and said, come on, Robbie, the cab's here. I'm like, cab's here, where we're going? We're going downtown. We're going exploring. So we got in the cab, went across the river, and we get downtown, and we're rounding the corner onto Bourbon Street. And it's in the day, but we run into a lady of the evening.
Oh.
And she said,
This is being recorded.
that's okay. I said it at his funeral. And that was videoed and streamed. She said, you boys want a date? And Jeff looked at her that quick and said, it'll cost you. But here's the funny thing about that. It was hilarious. She starts laughing. She said, I've done this way too long, and that's the funniest thing I've ever heard. And it broke the ice, and we sat there and witnessed to her on the side of the street. I kept looking around, make sure nobody saw us witnessing to her. From a distance, it could have been looked like we were negotiating with her. I'm probably like, Jeff, let's get out of here. Just so many funny. Oh, one more. It's my school, so I'm hogging the mic. Yes, I am. We show up one night in North Carolina, and Jeff was anti-electronic keyboard. He was going to play. He was one of the last ones that finally gave in and would start carrying that same dinosaur he carried all the way to the end. And so we're in this auditorium. We get there, piano's not out there, and he would get so mad because we weren't high maintenance, but one of the things in the rider was a tuned acoustic piano. We get there, no piano on the stage, and so we're looking around, and we find it in the corner, covered under moving blankets and painting tarps, and we uncover that thing, and it's setting, the back leg is setting on 3 cinder blocks. So he moved it. We had it. His keyboard, nope. He was a little stubborn. We moved that thing out on stage, and we start sound checking, and I heard a pop, and he broke a string. And he got mad, and he would play a little more. Pop, pop, he broke 2, and then he starts laughing. And he looked at me and said, I'm going to put this thing out to pasture before we leave here. And so he kept playing all night. He's popping strings left and right. And I would stand, right on the other side there. This one point, he broke a bass string, and that thing went through the crack. I felt it go by my nose, the raw edge of that. You're probably looking at me right now saying, so that's what happened to your face. So I stepped back. By the time that concert was over, I was 20 feet back because he He purposely was trying to get every last one of them on that. All right. Thank you guys for this. This was fun. Thank you for preparing those songs for this week, because that was special to me that we could honor Jeff that way. Okay. It was just a built-in way to give him his honor due. Listen, if you're at NQC Tuesday, please go into that SGMA induction ceremony and celebrate us celebrating Jeff. Thanks for listening to the Charles Novell School of Music podcast, The Best Day Yet. You can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter under the name the Charles Novell School of Music. And for more information on CNS and our upcoming events, like our online school, our weekend regional sessions, our creative coaching, and our pastor's retreat, you can visit us at our website at www.cnsmusic.com. As you've listened to this episode, we hope that you've gained some information that you can apply to your music and to your ministry to make today the best day yet.